Okay, everybody. We're trying to get things coordinated here. I'm Taylor Sharp. Welcome to the FileMaker Pro user group, Dallas, Texas. Today is April 5th. We're glad to have a good group here in our little conference room here, and then we've got a few people out in the virtual world. We're glad to have you here. I'm going to start off, run through a couple of announcements. Greg Price and I are the chapter co-coordinators, and so we help get things going. And Fred is with Harmonic Data. He helps out with kind of all the logistics and AV and stuff, and we're kind of the team that puts things on here. Regarding announcements, Greg, I guess you were reminding us about presentations.
Clarence Engage 2024 sessions are currently available on Box, I believe. And anybody who attended Engage or purchased the virtual package, I think is what they called it, should be able to get it. You should have gotten an email about this. I can go ahead and I can post the link to our chat if you think that's the right thing to do there. Taylor, what do you think?
Good idea.
Okay.
Post the link.
I'll go ahead and post that. Here's the thing. It's just they said it's going to be there for about 20 days and then it's going to end up on YouTube. So it's been 17 days now, I think. So maybe 18. So we're getting close enough. I don't feel too bad about putting this out here. So there you go. I put it up there and there's a password to be used. So if anybody wants to go ahead and have a look at it, have fun.
Okay, great stuff. As far as other announcements, I don't know if anybody going to the Build, Grow, Learn next week. Okay, Paul's going. So anyway, that's a conference that's it's more of a business conference, FileMaker thing, kind of. Is that kind of?
It's a combination business and technical sessions. So I'm looking forward to some of both, and of course the requisite networking.
There we go. Good. Okay, you'll have to tell us about it next month.
Hi, everybody. This is Fred. I'm going to be your stage manager here today. It's actually my title. We're going to do things a little differently. We have schedules. If you've looked on the website, starting up, we're going to have Dennis talking about Claris and some of Claris's competition. That's very exciting. And then Steve's going to get into, our positioning for billing and not billing, licensing, what's going to be happening, what we can talk about anyways. And then Paul's got some great stuff. What in the world is Studio? Please come and join us locally. We have food today. We have Taco Bar and we have guests. Say hello, guests. People who actually come live. It's much more exciting to be here live. All right, Taylor, that's all I have for now. Let's have Dennis take it away.
I should begin by saying that I felt a little bit awkward being the opening act for Steve, and I tried to talk Fred out of it and maybe be better off with a magician or a juggler, but he insisted it be me. So this is a presentation that I gave to the Denver group back in November, and it followed my interaction with a company in, I think they're in New Zealand or Australia, called Five, that was trying to sell me on their new low-code app. I can also blame Will Porter for this a little bit because Will is very fickle, experimenting with all the different alternatives that he can find to use instead of FileMaker. And I've poked around with a few of them, but it always encounters this question for me, whether I can afford to devote the time and the risk of getting involved in other apps, and maybe can I afford not to. I don't doubt that FileMaker has been around for a long time and probably will be around for a long time, but obviously they feel the pressure of competition or we wouldn't be looking at things like Claris Studio. So I'm going to run through this a little bit more quickly than I did in November. It's intended to provoke a discussion, so I don't want to step on Steve's toes and interfere with his presentation. Maybe if you have questions or comments about this, we can bring them up at the end. I first looked at Wikipedia to see what exists in low code. And of course, Claris FileMaker is shown a little bolder there. It does exist, but I was surprised at how many other things I was able to find on that resource. Gartner has this peculiar graph where they're showing leaders and challengers and visionaries and so on. But there are a whole bunch of others that just are not included in that Gartner study. And the ones that I highlighted in yellow are the ones that at least I could say I knew about or I had tried using. Five is the company out in the Pacific, in the Australia area. I forget what you call that region of the world. But anyway, they say that they approached me because they found my name on LinkedIn, which is odd, but nevertheless, it involved them showing me a demo. And there's a fellow there by the name of Dominic Keller, and he will do this demo for you. He did it for some other people I know. And of course, he was trying to illustrate how they cost less. He couldn't persuade me that he could do more, but he was persuasive that he costs less. Basically, what they do is allow you to download their app for free, and you can build whatever you want, but you only start paying for it when you deploy it to users. Pricing wise, I made this little comparison. So, and it may be out of date now. I have not updated this to see what current FileMaker prices are. But basically, you were going to pay if you had 5 of their apps, five apps. The 50 users don't cost you anything per month, but the apps deployed would end up costing you $137 a month. FileMaker with a 3-year contract would come to $440 a month. With a 1-year contract, $508 a month if you have 5 users with an average of $10.16 per month. So you can do the math for yourself with any prospective client. I created 5 scenarios that I could relate to or consider if I was going to try using something other than FileMaker. In the first one, it involved somebody who's an existing customer where their solution was fully developed, everybody was experienced. They didn't have the kind of budget where they could tell me, sure, whatever it costs, go ahead and do it. It would be discretionary. And there would have to be some compelling reason to take what they had already used and convert it to a new platform. And whether I could estimate development time certainly became a consideration for me. The second scenario was similar. Here it was an existing customer, but they expressed a desire for something new and additional that had nothing to do with their current solution. Their users were experienced with FileMaker. They were willing to put a limited amount of money into a budget for training. And I had to question whether they would benefit from having multiple database platforms running at the same time. In the third situation, it would be a brand new customer who never used anything except maybe Excel. And I had to depend on whether or not they could articulate their functional specs so that I could evaluate whether they could be satisfied without FileMaker. And again, there was always a discretionary budget involved, and I had a difficult time estimating how much time it would be involved compared to developing in FileMaker. A fourth scenario, again, another new customer. In this case, they had done some development on their own using FileMaker. They weren't very complete and probably vague about what their specifications are. And again, estimating the development time compared to just recreating something in a brand new app became a challenge. And then here are some things that I could say 5 can do that FileMaker cannot. This list of about a dozen things exist in their website. You can see these for yourself. So you look at this list and you wonder, well, are those things I need? Are those things that I would ever have a need for? And FileMaker does not have those built in. And here was the most important thing that I created for this presentation. There was a list of what I consider my FileMaker toolbox. Things that go all the way back to the 1980s that we sometimes take for granted. Gives me a feeling for what a college student would have to encounter if they came into the Claris community brand new and catching up on all of the functions and script steps and things that we take for granted as experienced FileMaker users. The documentation for the 5 program was not even online at the time that I did this presentation. Since then, they've come out with a new version. I only know that because of an email that I received from them. And now you can get into their documentation when you're in their app. And then the life expectancy became a consideration. You know, FileMaker is approaching 40 years old, and Apple 48 years old, and we can pretty well rest assured that it's not going to disappear on us. But if you want to use any of these new apps, whether it's Five or Airtable or SmartSuite or any other thing you might try, it's a little bit of a gamble to determine whether or not it's going to be around long enough to support the thing that you build for a client. Here I made a chart of the lifespan of some known applications. And, something like Basecamp has been around for 24 years. Excel for 36 years. There are some that have only been around for a shorter period of time. Some of them surprised me that they've been around for a while and I never heard of them, but there they are. So you would have a learning curve with something new, and that itself could affect your profitability if it's taking you a long time to learn something new. And then you have to consider what learning and support resources there are around. With the Claris community, we've got a lot, and with the meeting we're doing today, it's just another example of the kind of learning and support that we have available from Claris. In the case of Five, they've got a blog. And then this is the ultimate question that I bring up for myself is, what if I hit upon something where I just can't go any further to satisfy what the client needs? Can I reverse course? Can I go backwards if I encounter something like that? Or do I have to just revert back to FileMaker and start over?
Has anybody used any of these other things, have gone into them, looked at them, or done any investigating or dry running of them? Besides us folks here at FileMaker that use FileMaker, have anybody looked at any other things?
I mean, I've tried Airtable and Caspio and some things like that. I mean, you kind of try them. Usually where things get to be problematic on these competing platforms is the ease of business automation that we have in FileMaker. If you're going to do it in them, they usually don't have business automation. Their idea of business automation is to go all the way to JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, great. But if you aren't well versed in something like JavaScript for the business automation, then it's suddenly what they advertise as being easy is actually hard.
I can speak on behalf of Will, who has always shared with me his experience of trying so many different things. But I can always count on the fact that 3 months into his devotion to something new, he calls me up and tells me why he is considering coming back to FileMaker. So his curiosity is impressive, and his willingness to put a new client into something like that would not be something I'm willing to risk.
Fred.
Good morning. I got here late. I couldn't get the audio to work. I started out last week on 100 days of no code. I watched several completed people that had completed projects in that no code group. And I had one little thing in mind that I've been doing on FileMaker, and I thought I'd give it a try, no code. But I got stuck. I went 2 days, and I'm going to go back and work on it some more. But I did get part of it done in Python, and I was interested to see Taylor has been going to help me with FileMaker so that I could import data from one file and put it in another. And he told me to use a JSON what do you call it, Taylor? FileMaker term.
JSON formatting,
function.
JavaScript object notation. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, Python did that without a problem. So I got past that hurdle, but anyway, I tried. I'm gonna go back and mess on it some more. It's fascinating.
So my first introduction to databases years ago was actually with Airtable. And for what we were doing at the time, it was fine. And then later on, we reached a dead end with it. And of course, that was I know that Airtable has improved their product a lot over the past 6 years. So my experience with them is mostly where their product was 6-7 years ago. I think it's I have my personal book library in an Airtable database because I didn't have to mess with UI and the hosting is there and it's free up to a certain number of records or whatever. So that's I can access that library of books on my phone or my computer or whatever. But definitely from a business automation standpoint, and locking certain things down, it does become more difficult. But Dennis, you said something that I hadn't thought of before as a thing to weigh when evaluating these different low-code or no-code platforms in competition is how long they've been around and the likelihood that they will continue to be around. On the one hand, Claris has been, profitable for whatever they said at Engage, however many scores of quarters. As where, at least, back when I first started using Airtable, they were operating off of venture capital, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but you can only operate on venture capital for so long. And, does that product eventually get shut down or bought out and changed in some way? That's kind of, it's just an unknown with some of these newer things if they're just operating off of investment. Are they going to be around long term? And you can build this great empire of an application for a client, but if you have to tell them in 4 years, hey, that thing is going away, it's kind of not really what you want to do for business capital investment.
Yes. There we go. All right. Again, my name is Steve Sikora. I'm one of the owners of Harmonic, and I've been in the FileMaker, now Claris space for basically my entire adult life. It is how I have made my living, and one of the key pillars of my company's method for generating income. Has been for a very long time. So I've seen a lot of transition, a lot of change, a lot of evolution. A prior company of mine became a FileMaker partner way back in '99. At that time, we built for FileMaker themselves their internal Salesforce automation tool that they used for a number of years, and just recently replaced, used it for a couple of decades, built on FileMaker, for FileMaker. So we have a long history with the company, and I am in periodically concerned or excited about what are they doing? Why are they doing it? How is this going to affect our business? Does this increase opportunity or diminish it? And so this year, we finally got to meet together again at Claris Engage and down in Austin in February. And they had a lot to say. From my perspective, they've been on a journey, kind of a journey in the wilderness, perhaps some might feel, since 2019 when they said, hey, we're going to be Claris, no longer FileMaker. And we bought this thing.
called Stand Play that became Claris Connect. So from my perspective, they have finally articulated their vision for the why and the what and the where. Now, depending on where you've been on this journey and what you think about it, your perception might be that they're backpedaling and changing course. Some of us might perceive that. Some of us might perceive that they just did a bad job articulating what they were thinking, and now they've done a better job articulating what they were thinking. I'll let you come to your own conclusions on that, but I would point you to the Claris Engage keynote information that is out there on YouTube. As Greg told us, they're about to start posting the sessions. I think there's a lot of great session content that's going to come up, and I think within my organization at least, we're going to start identifying the ones that we're interested in people reviewing and seeing. I've got several I want to go over again. But available right now on YouTube. This is Claris's channel, and in Claris's channel, they have a playlist called Claris Engage 2024, which is frankly probably where a lot of those other sessions are going to start showing up. When they do, they already have the keynote that's up, right? And this keynote was done under NDA at the time. But there's a lot of interesting information in here if you're looking at what is Claris doing as a business and how are they positioning their platform? How are they planning to continue to invest in it, and what are they supporting? So I would point you to this if you're interested in some of what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But in the meantime, this is Claris's platform right now, right? Claris FileMaker plus Claris Connect plus Claris Studio. And most of us in the FileMaker space know and use and love that first one, and kind of wonder about the second one and the third one, and have had various success in trying to evaluate how, when, and where might we use that? What is the point? What does this bring to me? And I'm not going to rehash where we've been and where Claris has been with this, because I think what's relevant to me, at least in my business, is where they want to go with it. And if we, these are their keynote slides, by the way. If we zip a few down the line, and if you watch the keynote, you'll see these same slides. I call this the T-graph. And this T-graph is where Claris intends to take their platform. This is how they see it working out after, like I said, 5 years of maybe thinking about what they've got and what they're trying to accomplish. And what I find interesting about this T-graph is I feel that it's very reminiscent to the kinds of solutions that we build at Harmonic and how we think about FileMaker. So on the left-hand side here, we have internal facing solutions, or I might call those admin interfaces. And that's FileMaker, right? Up to a few hundred users using technologies that Claris, frankly, has some benefits with that some of its low-code competitors don't, like a very solid on-prem solution. And they have some interesting things to say about how they see on-prem, a combination of on-prem and AI working out in some future future years, where they can be on-prem and we can do localized AI. Someone who's cloud only, that's not even an option, right? So if you're in a compliance space, Claris may have an opportunity that some other people don't have, right? So we've got our internal facing solutions, that's FileMaker. We've got our external facing solutions up to several thousand users. That's the web, right? So Claris Studio is their solution for that. And that's, of course, what the last part of our presentation is about today. Paul is going to walk us through where Claris Studio is at today and some of the stuff that they're getting ready to release to us to start using. And then in the middle, at the bottom, that is Claris Connect. That is Claris's method for helping us integrate and interact with external data sources and systems, and I would note, integrate and interact between Studio and FileMaker. A lot of where Claris is headed with Studio is going to require some orchestration between the Studio platform and the FileMaker platform, and Connect is how they intend to solve that problem. So when I look at this T graph, I go, oh yeah, that's just how we've been building systems for a very long time. I agree, right? Let's use web technologies that are lightweight, that are scalable, etc., for public-facing things. Let's use APIs and integrations to connect them, and let's use FileMaker on the back end. So as a vision, this is their platform vision, right? And it's to be integrated and seamless. Well, one of the challenges to getting to this vision is, okay, how are we going to get people to opt in? How are we going to get people to try it? How are we going to get people to pay for it? So I'm going to back up in their presentation here and show you this slide. This is the thing that they announced at Claris Engage on this topic, that they are going to make Claris Connect and Claris Studio free with limits, right? So what does that mean? They have not yet publicly announced exactly how this is going to work. Here's an email that I received a couple weeks ago, embargoed, right? So we can't actually talk about what's behind the link of this email. If you are a Claris partner, you may have received a similar or the same email, but there is a discussion going on internally in the partner community about how they actually roll this out to people, and what they say about it, how they articulate it, what their position is. But my point in bringing this up is they are in the process of rolling this out, and essentially what it's going to boil down to is, if you are a FileMaker licensee, current FileMaker licensee, right? That means you've either got an annual license subscription, or you are continuing your maintenance on FileMaker, you're going to get Claris Connect and Claris Studio up to a certain limit built into that license, right? So they're essentially adding those as features to that license. Now, I think something that you should understand about that is that they're adding them as a teaser, right? I think what you should expect is not, oh, I'm going to be able to do a massive Claris Studio implementation for just the cost within my FileMaker license. And why is that? It's pretty simple. Claris has to pay money to do these things. They're not free, right? They are paying Amazon Web Services significant coin to build out and maintain infrastructure around the world to host these things on the back end. And unlike a venture company, to Eric's point, Claris is not in the business of not making money. They are in the business of making money. And you can look at that two ways. You can say, hey, I've got these other free or freemium models that are a better fit for my nonprofit that has no money. And the reality is that might be a reasonable choice for them. Part of how I look at it, though, is I'm in business to be in business in the long haul, and I want my customers to be in business in the long haul. And so I tend to be somewhat suspicious of free stuff because it's never free, right? It's something, there's some business model that's going on. And so the thing that is going on with Claris and their business model is they are in this first attempt, this is my opinion, by the way, but I think it's harmonious with what I've heard. In this first attempt, they are trying to get their existing FileMaker developers and users to buy into this new stuff, right? So they're making it easier. They're reducing friction, right? So if I go to the next slide, number one thing we're trying to do, no friction, right? And some other stuff that we're not going to talk about today. Technically, Paul may get into a couple of the things that are behind this. But the main thing here, no friction. What do they mean by no friction? What they mean by no friction is it's really easy to try and get started, right? Remove pricing and packaging constraints and some other stuff. So to me, the opportunity at the moment is for us to take a look at what's available today with Connect and Studio and start asking and answering the question, does this make sense? I'll tell you that for us internally with Harmonic, we are currently looking at leveraging Studio on our own website, right? For forms. What is Studio, right? It is a form engine. It's a public form engine. It's based on microservices. It's very lightweight, and it lets us put data in a place where we can interact with that data using our Claris platform. And Paul's going to get into an interesting demo that kind of shows us the state of the art on that right now, right? So that's what we're looking at. I'll tell you, to be completely honest, the major block for me with Studio and most of my customers is this number 2, this one identity everywhere thing, right? Because right now, to use Studio, it's either anonymous. Okay, that's great. For some use cases, anonymous is right. But in most of my use cases, when I've got those thousands of users, I need to put that behind a login, right? I've got to be able to credential that person. And for me, Claris ID is not the credentialing mechanism I need to use. It's probably Active Directory, right? Or some other kind of globally accessible credentialing mechanism that's already in use in that enterprise elsewhere. So I will be very excited when Claris does support this. And they promise that they are working on it, right? With Studio. They promise they're working on it. It is high on their list of priorities. It has not rolled out yet. But I do think that there are some use cases that are coming up very soon that I'm going to be able to leverage Studio for. And we're taking a look at Connect from my seat, mainly from a standpoint of, okay, how can I get data back and forth between Studio and FileMaker? Because we have a team of people that in our app technologies group that if we want to integrate with APIs, I mean, we just write the integration, right? I don't particularly need Connect to do that. That said, if I have a customer and I have some specific connectors that Connect leverages and integrates nicely, I'm interested in looking at that. So I think the takeaway I want to call out here is they are about to roll out their revised licensing, and they are currently attacking the existing FileMaker license base, right? I think that's the important thing to understand. What does that mean they're not doing? This is not Claris's new adoption strategy. This is not Claris's greenfield, blue sky, brand new customer adoption strategy. That might look more like a freemium model, like a lot of their low-code competitors are doing. And they have stated off the record that they're interested in doing this, that they're trying to figure out how to do this. I think the challenge is they got a long tail of people who are licensees with permanent licenses and maintenance and annual licenses and all different kinds of configurations. And it is not going to be a quick thing for them to flip the switch and figure out how to do the right kind of a free up to X point. So what they are not rolling out in the very near future is a freemium model where maybe Claris Studio is the entree, right? Because frankly, Claris Studio is a much kind of closer analog to something like what 5 is representing, or Airtable and so forth, right? Doesn't mean they're not going to do that, but it means they're not doing that yet. So that's kind of the state of the art right now on where Claris is at with their licensing, what they're rolling out, and some of the stuff that they talked about recently.
My contract for my Server 5 licenses is about to be renewed, and I'm going to go with a 2-year renewal.
Yep.
So does that mean I'm going to get all this freebie stuff of the Connect and Studio?
My understanding is yes, that Claris is going to essentially, if you are an active licensee, it's not licensed after a point. They're going to figure out how to make it global to all license holders. You don't need to do anything different. You don't need to buy a different license. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest issue I've had is I haven't really seen, I mean, FileMaker is secondary to my accounting job. So I haven't really seen, though, anything that says, okay, here's why you should get Connect.
Yep.
Here's why you should get Studio. And when I went to the Connect thing, they said, well, what do you do? And I said, okay, this. And they said, yeah, that's not really for you. And so then now I'm looking at Studio, and it's like, okay, does Studio fit with what I do? Because everything I do is not for sale to outside. It's strictly in-house usage.
Yep. Yep.
So I haven't seen anything that says, here, Thomas, this is why you want to play with this.
Yeah. And maybe you'll see something today with Paul. But I think the message that I would take away is they're going to include enough usage in your license by default for you to play with it, for you to make that determination, right? Does it make sense for me to build a custom connector and use Connect? And does that help me solve a particular business problem? Does it make sense for me to stand up a form in Studio, either behind a Claris ID or with anonymous login, without you having to spend extra money on the front end?
See you soon.
Okay, everybody, we will be back here next month. Good to have you here. Paul, you can report to us on how Grow, Build, whatever conference is, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. Take care.